Today, we're diving deep into one of Europe's most shocking and tragic royal scandals. This is a story of a mad king, a lonely queen, a forbidden love affair, and a brutal public execution that shook an entire kingdom to its core. Our journey takes us to 18th century Denmark, a nation ruled not by a powerful monarch, but by a young king who was lost in the darkness of his own mind. His name was Christian VII, and he was crowned at just 17 years old. When he first took the throne, the court was full of hope. He was young, handsome, and seemed to have a bright future ahead of him. But that optimism quickly turned to terror. It soon became terrifyingly clear to everyone that the king was not well. In fact, he was not sane. Christian suffered from a severe and debilitating mental illness. The symptoms were frightening and unpredictable. He would talk to himself for hours on end, suddenly scream without any warning, and was known to physically harm himself. There were nights he would wander the palace, convinced that demons were chasing him through the halls. Foreign ambassadors sent chilling reports back to their own countries. One wrote, "The king is a child trapped in a broken mind." Denmark had a king in name, but in reality there was no one truly in charge. The throne was empty. Desperate to control the erratic young monarch, the royal council decided on a solution: marriage. They arranged a match with a young British princess, Caroline Matilda. She was only 15 years old when she arrived in Denmark, full of youthful hope and dreaming of becoming a powerful and beloved queen. But her dreams were shattered almost immediately. She found herself married to a man who barely acknowledged her existence. Christian showed her no affection, preferring the company of prostitutes and engaging in violent, destructive games with his friends. He cruelly referred to her as the English cow. Caroline was trapped. She was isolated in a foreign court, ignored by her husband, and publicly humiliated. She was utterly alone. But then, one man entered the court and changed everything. His name was Johann Friedrich Struensee, a German doctor. He was hired to treat the king's worsening condition, and he succeeded where everyone else had failed. Struensee seemed to understand Christian's tortured mind. He was able to calm him, to reason with him, and slowly, he gained the king's complete and absolute trust. Within a matter of months, Struensee's influence grew beyond anything the court had ever seen. He was no longer just the king's personal physician. He was the de facto ruler of Denmark. He was making decisions, passing laws, and shaping the future of the nation. The king, in his childlike state, was happy to delegate. But as Struensee's power grew, something else, something deeply personal and dangerous, began to blossom within the palace walls. The lonely queen, Caroline Matilda, and the powerful doctor, Johann Friedrich Struensee, fell deeply in love. Their connection was immediate and intense. They found in each other the companionship and understanding they both craved. Their affair was an open secret. They rode horses together in the royal parks. They dined together. They exchanged passionate letters. Eventually, they shared a bed. It was a reckless, passionate, and ultimately doomed romance. Incredibly, the king noticed nothing. He was so dependent on Struensee, so wrapped up in his own world, that the affair happening right under his nose went completely unseen. He trusted his doctor implicitly. He once famously declared, "Whatever Struensee wants, I want." The king had essentially handed over his crown, his power, and even his wife to another man. But while the king was oblivious, the Danish court was not. The nobles, the clergy, and most dangerously, the king's own stepmother, the Dowager Queen Juliane Marie, were watching with growing fury. To them, this was an outrage. A foreign doctor, a commoner, was not only controlling the king and running the country, but he was also sleeping with the queen. This was more than a scandal. It was a threat to the entire social order. And for the king's enemies, it was the perfect opportunity to seize power. The conspiracy was set. In the freezing early hours of January 17, 1772, while the king slept soundly in his chambers, the plot was put into motion. Soldiers loyal to the Dowager Queen stormed the palace. The coup was swift and brutal. Caroline Matilda was dragged from her bed, half-dressed and terrified, screaming for her children as she was taken away. Struensee was arrested at the same time. He was beaten, thrown into a dungeon, and subjected to relentless torture. The charges against them were the most serious imaginable: high treason against the crown and adultery with the queen. The trial that followed was a sham. a piece of political theater where the verdict was decided long before any evidence was presented. Under the agony of torture, Struensee confessed to everything. The consequences were devastating for both lovers. Caroline Matilda was stripped of her title as queen and exiled from Denmark forever. Her greatest punishment was being permanently separated from her 2 young children. She would never be allowed to see them again, but the true horror was reserved for Struensee. His fate was designed to be a terrifying public spectacle, a warning to anyone who dared to challenge the established power. On April 28, 1772, a massive, eager crowd gathered in Copenhagen to witness his execution. It was not a quick or merciful death. First, his right hand, the hand that had signed laws and written love letters to the queen, was cut off with an axe. Then, his left hand was severed. Then, he was beheaded. Finally, his body was drawn and quartered, the pieces displayed publicly on wheels as a gruesome deterrent. Witnesses reported that while the crowd cheered at the spectacle, the executioner himself was seen weeping. After the coup, Christian VII remained king in name only. He was now a complete puppet, controlled by his stepmother's faction. He was more isolated, terrified, and lost in his madness than ever before. His mind finally collapsed completely, and he lived out the rest of his long life in a fog of confusion and fear. Caroline Matilda, heartbroken and alone in exile, died just 2 years later from an illness. She was only 23 years old. All of the progressive reforms that Struensee had implemented, reforms on free press, education, and the justice system, were immediately erased. Denmark returned to a strict authoritarian rule. The shadow of this scandal haunted the Danish royal family for generations. Because the story of this tragic affair reveals a simple, brutal truth. 18th century Denmark was not just a kingdom ruled by a mad king. It was a kingdom destroyed by fear, consumed by jealousy, and shattered by a forbidden love that dared to challenge the power of an entire nation. And that is the real story of the Mad King of Denmark and the lover who paid the ultimate price. Thank you for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more dives into the hidden corners of history. We'll see you in the next one.